They thought encrypted meant invisible. Instead, every message became a breadcrumb. This is the story of two men, Paul Fontaine and Frankie Sinclair, who tried to turn a feud into a murder contract through EncroChat, and how the very system they trusted sealed their fate. Cardiff, early 2020. A family home is attacked. Gunfire shatters the quiet. A shotgun, a handgun, even a crossbow appears. The target is the mother of a local figure, Frankie Sinclair. Within days, encrypted handles light up on EncroChat. The names are memorable: Usualwolf and Nudetrain. Usualwolf is Paul Fontaine, a middleman and problem solver in the criminal economy. Nudetrain is Sinclair, out for revenge. The message traffic builds quickly. A target is identified, the rival Tehran Hassan. A weapon is needed. Ammunition is needed. The word is sweets, code for bullets. Prices are discussed. Timelines are sketched. And in the middle of it all, a pistol famous in movies, the Walther PPK, the Bond gun, referred to casually as a James Bond ting. If that sounds like posturing, the next messages cut through the bravado. Sinclair tries to source ammunition in London. He shares an image and says the rounds are the wrong size. There's 37 of them, so give him 370. One message reads, £10 a bullet, as if they're items on a shopping list. The gun doesn't match the ammo. The plan stalls, but only for a moment. Fontaine moves to a new option. If the bomb pistol won't run, another gun will. A revolver. Ammunition with it. The supply chain shifts to keep the plot alive. The language in the chats is coded, but the intent is not. Sweets for bullets, straps for guns, and a word from Jamaican patois, duppy, meaning ghost, used here the way the streets use it, to kill. The negotiation is clinical. 30k per body, one message says, all in. If the client supplies the tools, 20k. These are not threats. They are line item details for a murder for hire. They believe EncroChat protects them. For years, the platform existed as an encrypted enclave for serious criminals. It was where you went to buy wholesale drugs, to source guns, to launder cash, to coordinate violence, without the usual fear that a wiretap would catch your voice or your thumbs. But in 2020, French investigators penetrated EncroChat. They quietly captured live messages and pushed the decrypted data to national partners. In the UK, the result was Operation Venetic. Thousands of arrests, warehouses of evidence, and cases that relied on chat logs like these. Back in Cardiff, the planned hit suddenly swerves. On April 15, 2020, police arrest the intended victim, Tehran Hassan, for a separate attempted murder. The target is off the street. The job no longer makes sense. But conspiracy doesn't evaporate just because the opportunity does. The messages remain, and the messages tell a story. Prosecutors start adding context. They say Sinclair's mother's home was attacked, and that the incident was captured on CCTV, lifted from Sinclair's own device. 3 figures, a shotgun, a handgun, and a crossbow in a residential street. They show the handles, Nudetrain and Usualwolf. They show the Bond gun, the ammo mismatch, the talk of pricing. They show the switch to a different weapon when the first plan failed. And they add a second thread that makes Fontaine look less like a one-off fixer and more like a sustained supplier. In March 2020, a 9mm Makarov pistol is used in the murder of Abdullahi Mahmoud in Enfield. Prosecutors say Fontaine supplied that gun. Different shooting. Same middle. The trial that follows becomes a stress test of EncroChat ethics. The defense argues that the French implant, the investigative tool that captured the messages, was unreliable and secretive. They say it stopped and started and can't be fully scrutinized in UK courts because of French secrecy laws. If you can't see the method, they argue, how do you trust the product? The prosecution counters point by point. The chats line up with the real world, they say. The language, the pictures, the timing. Each has an echo in events we can verify. The handles are consistently mapped to the defendants. And crucially, there's no evidence of messages being planted, altered, or misattributed. Whatever we don't know about the tech, we do know the outputs fit the facts. Jurors also hear that Sinclair doesn't actually dispute the authenticity of the messages. He argues instead that missing messages would have helped him if only they were available. But that's a different claim than saying the logs are fake. The more the court hears, the more the chats sound like a window into real intent. 7 weeks at the Old Bailey. Messages are read aloud that were never meant to be heard by anyone outside the circle. Sweets. Duppy. 30k per body. The Bond gun. The wrong ammo. The second gun. The London pickup. The target. The price. The logistics. And then the verdict. Guilty. Both men are convicted of conspiracy to murder, marking the first time in the UK that an encrypted message platform like EncroChat was the foundation of a murder plot conviction. They're also convicted on linked charges: firearms, drugs, counterfeit currency, money laundering. When sentencing comes down on May 27, 2022, it's life. Minimum 18 years. So what does this case mean beyond these two men? First, it proves prosecutors can win a murder plot case largely on messages. No handover captured on live surveillance. No gun recovered from a stop in the street. Instead, words, images, prices, and a timeline that links to the world outside the phone. Second, it shows the linguistics of intent matter. In isolation, slang like sweets, straps, or duppy might sound like tough talk. In context, with photos of ammunition, with a price list per body, with a named target, it stops being bravado and starts reading like a plan. Third, it highlights a fault line in modern digital prosecutions: secrecy versus scrutiny. If the method is classified, defense teams can't probe every screw and bolt that produce the evidence. Prosecutors say the outputs are what count. And here, those outputs map cleanly to reality. That tension isn't going away. It will shadow EncroChat-type litigation across Europe for years. There's also a human truth underneath the legal one. Fontaine and Sinclair believed they were talking in a room no one could enter. They believed the door was locked, the glass was soundproof, and the world outside could never hear what they said inside. But the door wasn't locked. The glass wasn't soundproof. And when those messages were read in court, their own words did the heavy lifting. In the end, the James Bond ting wasn't a stylish detail. It was the punchline to a grim irony. They borrowed an image from cinema to sell the idea of control. A perfect gun, a perfect plan, a perfect alibi in encryption. And yet the thing they trusted most, EncroChat, became the evidence that undid them. This is CaseDepth. If you appreciated the reporting, like and subscribe for more cases. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.